Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. Listen up. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. I got out of the shower at 9:20, I think. I don't even know what time I got out of the shower.
I got out of the shower at 9:17 because I actually looked, and I'm a girl, so I do have wet hair today, but I'm pretty, it's pink day. Remember that?
It is pink.
Yes.
Yeah, I should have done something, but then again, I didn't. Well, welcome to episode 12. Again, we're here thanks to our host at the South Point Hotel. We're here right by the gold buckle, or the gold carpet, where you can do selfies right across from the Coronado. And 10 minutes ago, there wasn't a line for breakfast. And we're seeing the transition. We're starting to see the transition between when you can and you cannot walk down this hall without getting roped. With the World Series in full effect now, the Grand View across the street's filling up, which you can always tell because they have these luggage carts in the hallway, and it becomes a fight for who gets the luggage cart. Like, they'll be standing in line waiting for, Sister Sue to bring in her 66 buckets of shoes. And there's a line, and there's this little old man, and he was standing there, and he said, "Do you know where a luggage cart is?" And I said, "Yeah, I know. There's about 12 of them in the parking lot, but if you stand right here, they usually throw them in the door and run." And about that time, some other younger guy came and said, "I'm going to get a luggage cart." And I said, "Well, not before him." The old man said, "Well, it's okay." I'm like, "No." So anyway, there's a luggage cart fight over there. But we are here. It's episode 12. I call it our Dirty Dozen episode. So we'll go from there. How about you guys? Anything personal? What about your finger?
Besides trying to bleed out in the
Tell us about
the finger, bathroom last night. I felt really bad for the cleaning staff because after Oat and I, every night we watch the extras, the calves and the steers. And then
that sounds exciting.
It is for us.
Okay.
And it's also fun. I'm videoing Tyler Barley, who's the grandson of forever ago Leon Barley, NFR steer wrestler, but he came up through steer wrestling junior stuff. Great kid, but running the extras to me is actually really fun part of the deal. Like Ty Harris's brother Joel, who I think went out there for the first time this year on the big trail. He's running the extras in the calf roping, and there's Ty in the box with him. And you can watch and you can tell that Joel is using this as prep for when he's here. That's what he hopes. His big goal is to be here, but you see, Corey Kidd's heading the steers and the extras. They're doing this. Yes, they get paid a pittance, but it's a pretty cool. If you're on the rise and you get to run the extras in the Thomas and Mack, they pull the barrier and the whole bit. It's actually pretty cool.
How long does it take? So perf ends.
It doesn't take. It doesn't take very long. And by the way, last night's the first night because we had a late re-ride that after the perf and after most people are cleared out, they bucked a bowl. And
I don't understand that either. I don't understand. I guess I just don't. I would probably have. They were pretty much ready. They ended up bucking that bull. I don't know. A minute after they did the victory flag?
But I think it's because having us been in all the production meetings for all those years, there's a literal cutoff. If it's after X number, then it automatically goes after the rodeo because you know how you play beat the clock to get everybody out of there and back into the casinos. That's just part of it.
Well, it could be. You never know how winded that guy is, right? Because I try to get all the re-rides in immediately, but really the way to do it is to, if the guy just got off, like he's the last guy, you need to let him catch his breath, get his glove off. So anyway, interesting on that. But for the people that don't know, maybe, because we've got some water cooler rodeo fans, extras. Let's clarify that for everybody so that there's extra timed event cattle that could be used. Those could be used, correct?
Right. So say, for example, has it happened here yet? If it happened at the breakaway finals the other day with Jackie Crawford as an example. The calf was down in the chute, wouldn't give her a fair start. So when that happens, or at the NFR either way, then if they can't hold the show up for 10 minutes, for the calf or steer to get right. So if they're not going to cooperate, they do that in the rough stock also, but the calves and the steers, then, they have extras so that if they have to turn the one out that you drew, there's a spare. And so these guys who run the extras after the performance, they're putting even runs on the cattle so that if that calf or steer is used, it's as level a playing field as you can have if you have to run one that's not in the draw.
I think in the second perf, actually, in the tie down, someone didn't nod because I remember
it was Weston Hughes.
Yeah, they had to run the extra.
Yes.
But all those guys, the ones that are competing, they stay there and take notes, or do they have minions that take notes for them?
Different people, and I know, like my son Taylor, when he's here, he does actually show up. A few of them show up. I don't see very many of them out there now, but the absolute, I'm not going to call them minions. They're very important. Like they're people that are taking note of exactly what happens. If does that calf kick? Did that steer, shuffle or drag or anything, trot? So, and by the way, like even just raising kids through high school rodeo and stuff. They would say tie the goats before the rodeo or whatever. That is a very important job. And like Tyler Barley running those steers, I'm watching this with Oat, and that's a very important job because if you're using it for your own personal gain, you're not doing the top 15, the service that you're there to do, which is to do it right and put that run on the calf or the steer that's going to level the playing field.
Who picks who gets to do that?
I think that the event rep has a lot to do with that. And the guys, I'm assuming the guys have, some input. They're not going to have some, somebody that doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, they're not going to do it.
But it's an important job.
So is it the contestants that do it, or is it just...
No, the contestants can't do it. But I do see that they're allowing... Matt Reeves is hazing during the rodeo, and he's hazing for Tyler Barley when that kid runs the extras after. So that is apparently allowed. But it's an important job because you're keeping things even.
So, yeah, and that's interesting. I think that's very interesting. People may not have realized that happens. So cool. Sounds exciting. So I'll kick off the performance. We'll try to run through the performance. I will say it's cool. I've heard from a couple no spinners here. Rick Davis with Ogden, the great rodeo in Utah that happens during our Pioneer Rodeo Week. He did say that he listens to our podcast. He actually, though, he puts it on before he goes to sleep.
Well, that's who I just rode down the elevator with, and he introduced himself, and he said, I listened to it, when at bedtime, and I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But
what did you call it, Greg?
Okay.
We ought to call it the lullaby.
Yeah, no spin lullaby.
Anyway,
maybe he just needed to know all the, everything he could find out, and then he could let himself rest.
I thought overall it was more of a kind of a standard Flair night. I will say, and I want to bring it up, so here's how I do it. Greg and I had a little conversation. We'll touch on it on feedback. I'll watch the live arena feed I watch it for the opening, right? Because I want to hear all the music, what the selection was. I want to see if they mess up. I want to see the video. And then I switch it over to the regular feed, the broadcast feed, because it has stats. So if you're watching the live feed at home and you're wondering why aren't they showing the times and stuff, that's because they're essentially piping what goes to the middle screen in the arena. And there's several other screens, Rick Salee, Scott Walton, those guys put stats on that are around, and you don't get that. So I switch over because I want to see the stats, I want to see the clock, and I like listening to Metters and Knowles. I actually do. I enjoy listening to those guys. And so I switch over, and there's a third feed. There's a feed that's rebaked that goes out to all the hotels here. That is what's piped into the
watch parties.
The watch parties. Mm-hmm. And then really there's another layer of feed, and that is each watch party manipulates the feed to put their sponsors in, right? So there's a lot of ways to watch the NFR, but back to my initial point, the opening, it was the Memorial Night, which I miss Bob Tallman. When Bob Tallman used to do the Memorial Night,
He's the guy who his voice cracks as he talks.
because his heart cracks
Yes,
as
correct.
he talks.
And he brings tears to all of our eyes. They have used him
They've been using him for legends, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's really cool. And I know, having yesterday spent some time in the middle of the day with Billy Atbauer and Cody Ohl. Cody specifically said it meant a lot to me that Bob Tallman was the guy, because he was the guy that fired me up every night, before those 52 victory laps here. But that's nice. There's no emotion like a Bob Tallman. So
There isn't.
But Memorial
Boyd
Night.
Bohemus is good too. I mean, not that these guys aren't, but I'm just saying guys that have kind of been able to paint a picture with more vivid paint is all I'll say.
Tallman's the master
He is
on
the
Memorial Night. Okay.
So I'm watching it, and I noticed their musical act, which they now do as their openings all the way through. And I'm not really paying attention. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to make my macaroni or what, but I've got it sitting there. And this young man starts singing, and his name's Cody Lee. I did some research after listening to him. America's Got Talent 14th season winner, plays a piano, and his voice and his artistic ability would stand you in your shoes. And then I did a little backstage research on him, and you may not have known that, but this gentleman is legally blind. He's autistic, and he has Addison's disease. So he's battling physical things and real physical things. And then he asked for no rehearsal. He walked up there cold. Now that makes me, that's big to me. Walked up there cold, and if you haven't heard it, go back and find it. It was absolutely incredible and so fitting for the memorial slides going. It was hats off to that kid. What a great performer.
And you know what? That's so cool. We're all so different, and he was given a gift.
Amen.
And he's using his gift, and I wish somehow, some way, everybody could have known that he's blind and autistic. I mean, it's just even more.
And you never
cool.
know. Some of those people don't want that mentioned, right?
Understood.
And I could understand. And I don't know. I don't know the background or what was said.
But good for him.
But good for him. And when I found that out, I was like, oh my God, because he was so good anyway, right?
Right.
That I thought that was.
And the Memorial Night part, before we get to talking about the rodeo, to me, when tears started streaking down my face twice, Trenton Montero
Yep.
and Larry Mahan, I mean, God bless every one of those people. That was, the bull. And, I mean, Trenton, who has that little baby boy, Noah. I don't know where Maria was last night, if she was in the house or not, but, all the bareback riders, they wore royal blue, navy blue, baby blue, turquoise, but they were all in blue for Trenton. And, I think they were saying Trenton tough. That was really cool. And another thing, before we start into the rodeo, I happened into a conversation with Wesley Thorpe yesterday before the rodeo, who's number 1 in the world in the team roping. And last night, every seat in the Thomas and Mack had a golden bandana on it, and that's for the Golden Circle of Champions, which comes from my part of the country. It's since 2016, Tina Tanaskia founded this concept for, pairing cowboys with kids fighting pediatric cancer. And Wesley Thorpe had done no good in the first 2 rounds. And so I'm sitting there talking to him in a quiet moment before last night's performance, where he actually got his first check. But he was in a place of total peace after going to the Golden Circle of Champions event here at the South Point yesterday during the day. He was paired with a kid, Tristan Krauser, who is dear to my family also. When my son Taylor made his first NFR in 19, he drew the golden ticket, and he got paired with Tristan. And this is a kid, he's 20, he's very small. You might guess that he's 12, but since he's 2, he's fought cancer, and it's back. And this kid is like, his mission in life now is to help other kids learn to rope.
Right. Yeah.
And his happy place is on his horse with a rope in his hand, and he's like, cancer's hell.
Yeah.
But I'm here to fight, and with my last breath, I will fight to get to rope.
Well, I went to it. They actually had it at the Tuscany in a ballroom.
Oh, they moved it. Sorry, I didn't know that.
They moved it to the Tuscany, which was nice. And I went to it because we hosted, as one of the host rodeos, the Utah Days of 47 rodeo, we hosted Diamond Dixie, an 11-year-old young lady who's battling cancer, and we brought her and her family in. And so it was my first time to kind of be in the backstage and to walk around. And a couple notes on it. The young man you're talking about, they saluted him. They played a video to him. But you watch these kids, and some of them are full of energy, and you can tell they feel good. Some of them don't feel very good. But what I really noted as I stood there and watched is the Cowboys come into the room kind of with this glazed over, another appearance mode, I call it, right? I need to do this, and then I got to go here, and I got to go there. And I'm telling you, those walls bust down.
It changes
as soon
everything.
as they meet their kid, right? And all of a sudden, if you watch all the contestants, they don't stop having eye contact with they're engrossed in the experience, and you hear it over and over again. When they leave, they're changed. This whole pressure.
It's true, and Wesley has 2 little boys of his own, Matthew and Charlie, and he took Matthew with him. The other thing, me as a parent, having been there twice as a parent of a cowboy, to visit with those parents.
Yeah. It's unfathomable. But to bring, when they get to walk, those kids walk down the red carpet, they get on the stage, they get Montana Silversmith's buckles. War Bonnet did a hat auction so all of the mustard hat, the yellow gold hats that the guys wore last night, and there was, I think, 7 or 8 of them. Well, those all got auctioned. Well, I thought, I'll pick up this auction if it needs a little help. Well, the first hat went for $25,000. I'm like, well, this dude isn't going to be able to pick this up any. And they ended up, I think the cheapest hat went for $10,000. And War Bonnet engraves the name of the contestant and the child in the hat. And they get auctioned. That money is supposed to go half to the contestant and half to pediatric cancer, to Golden Circle. Every one of the contestants said no. All of the money goes to the kids. And I don't know the exact number, but last night they all rode in them. Right, Caleb, all of them, right, had them on, and then the kids, the first little one said, "Please bid $1,000 for my hat," and then we were just waiting for the next one to go, $3,000 for my hat, please. It was just, it's a remarkable afternoon.
And you know who War Bonnet Hats is? It's Shad Field. It's the Fields, and the brother-in-law to Casey and Shad Field is Ren Richard, who's team repping here, and Ren and Jeremy Bueller wore the golden hats last night.
And I think Ren's wife bought the hat. Here was what was also interesting. I think the biggest buyer was, don't hold me to this, Las Vegas events for $25,000. But a lot of the hats for $10,000 were bought by the family members of the contestants.
That's Cowboys for you.
That's Cowboys. Cool. Well, I don't want to take too much time, but I think this is the good stuff, right?
Yeah, I have one quick question. Do any of you know the story about the pirate?
Yep.
You go for it, but I make all these notes on my day sheet, but I wrote matey, full pirate in the grand entry, and then I did figure out, I don't know Hayes Waite from Goshen, Utah. So I can't wait, but I did make note, like, I gotta know this guy.
Yeah, and I don't know the specifics, but these locker rooms are a special place here, right? Mm-hmm. These guys go into the locker room, and that's their special place, and they kind of got a rookie thing, right? You get thrown off X, Y, Z, whatever the rules are, you have to do this. Well, that's what happened to Hayes. Gotcha. He had to wear a pirate outfit, and when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's great. And then I couldn't take my eyes off the flopping parrot on his shoulder, right? It was just classic. So that's what it was. It was a loss of a rookie bet, the way I understand it.
A little bit of hazing.
Yeah, if we're wrong on this, shoot us a note. And
it's so awesome, though, because surely he did not get fined because he had the freaking, who's the guy that's Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean.
What's the guy's name? Johnny
Depp. But what's
Johnny
his
Depp.
Character's name? I can't remember. But anyway.
Okay, but he didn't just half-ass it.
He didn't just put a hat on.
He did he not have an eye patch on?
Yeah, but I'm saying he didn't just halfway, like you said.
It was awesome.
And again, there's a parrot glued to his shoulder that I'm waiting to fly off at any minute, right? So that was the pirate story. So good stuff. Anyway, so we'll dive into the action, run through it, and kind of talk about it. For me, when I sat back and thought, what was it? It was, to me, it was kind of the veterans show the reason that they're here. When you look at kind of the winners across the board down, for me, and we'll get into it. It was these people like Proctor and stuff that have been around here. Just because they've been around here, don't count them out.
So do you want to go in event order? Because I couldn't agree more. There were some cases of redemption that are so worth talking about.
Let's do it like we've done every day.
Okay,
you start from the top.
So Mason Clements wins the round in the bareback riding. The coolest part to me yesterday, each night, now 3 nights in, it is so... I love having the access to the tunnels, and there's a special room last night that I happened into that was full of cowboys. But watching the bareback riders warm up, including Mason Clements, Dean Thompson's on his back with one of those big inflatable balls, and he's got his feet like he's going to spur the ball, and it's all about, they've got bands around their feet. Leighton Berry was in there with bands around his feet. Jesse Brown, the Bulldogger, was in there with him, by the way. He was on a bike, and then he's doing those bands. But do not underestimate what these guys do for fitness and to warm up before to try to prevent injury and to try to get through this week without being so sored up that they can't ride. Last night was the eliminators in the bareback riding, and to see what these guys, they're like warming up every muscle in their body and opening up their hips to places I don't know if you could. Gumby might not be able to do it, but it's intense and it's cool to watch, and it's almost, there's a lot of like Zen yoga Pilates looking moves, but then some of it's really intense, spur motions on a ball and different things.
If you're not watching YouTube, you got to see what the definition of intense is for Kendra with her hands. Well, here's the thing, eliminators. Let's make sure that if you're hearing this and you're like, it kind of makes sense when you hear eliminators, but there's lots of versions of eliminators, but the ones that come to the NFR, there's a version of eliminators that just cheat the whole time and to try to buck you off. Those don't get brought. Okay, and there's stock contractors with those in their pins. Those are the ones that the guys turn out at rodeos across the country during the year. These eliminators buck, and then they throw in swoops, right? So you can imagine if you're only holding on by a suitcase handle, right? You're locked in. You're on a huge animal that's bucking. You'll watch those horses, they'll buck 2 or 3 times really nice. The bareback rider's like, oh, and they're just waiting for that horse to duck to the left, throwing their balance off, duck to the right, sometimes left, right. Yep. And what people don't notice is another part of eliminator is those horses will angle to the fence, so they have to make a hard right or left. Well, you can imagine if you're on a bull, a horse, a rough stock, and you see the fence coming, you're trying to adjust which way he's going to go by that angle while the horse, this is the key, but while they're really bucking. And I thought this will be the test for Rocker. Okay? And because, remember we talked about Rocker being lighter weight, right? That helping him. Well, here's the deal. I think Rocker won because he didn't get thrown off. And I mean that. Those kind of horses will take a little guy like that, right? And you saw a lot of guys get thrown off. Mm-hmm. And it's a win, I think, for Rocker to have a score and to get through that and to look healthy.
Survival mode kicks in with the eliminators. And for me, Rocker had a greater win than getting a score. He was 73.5 points. But I wrote a story yesterday with Ty Murray about Rocker, and everybody, love, hate with Rocker. His greatest win for me last night when he was 73.5 points was the difference between how he handled that at 19 versus how he handled that at 18. And no one had to, we don't have to hear about, reading lips or anything on the teleprompter, because in 1 year, he has possibly matured 5 years. And
amen. I agree.
So,
when we talked about that.
Yeah.
And that's what needed to happen and was just an evolution. And in case you didn't know it, Mason Clements, he got in with the new playoff format at the Governor's Cup. It was his scraping in all that dough and winning at the last rodeo of the season that got him in. So and I think that's sport. There's argument out there. There's love-hate with playoff, right? But for me, right, everybody knows how I am. I like the intensity of options in and win when it counts. And hats off to Mason. Glad he won. Glad he had a good night.
Okay.
Okay.
So Nick Guy won the round in the steer wrestling last night. He was 4-2. It was the bigger, stronger pen. And
there was a lot of misses last night.
Well, and I mean, you don't miss them because they're big and strong.
It was a new pen of cattle, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's the bigger, stronger ones. But as Oat would say, when they run in the big ones like this, you can't just hit and jerk. Like, you really have to stay up over them. And the guys who do that, it'll really start in the gamesmanship as the week goes. But guys who got through, kind of like getting through the eliminator pen and the bulldogging, you make a good solid showing in the bigger, stouter pen. It will serve you well come rounds 9 and 10.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing in some post comments from Nick that I guess, having been in this business as long as I have, I didn't really pay attention to, but he talked about those cattle in the chute, right? And his particular steer, when the gate opened, the steer looked his way, causing him to catch a horn a little bit, and that changes all that timing on that start. You keep it. It's the start. He's got a good start. Well, it's the timing to get out there right before the barrier breaks, and the way those cattle leave that chute creates an adjustment that I don't think can actually happen by the time that horse hears, like, everything's going, they're going, right? And the way that they're looking after they pop the chute, I've known that they pay attention to getting them looking right. In case you don't know, if you're not big in rodeo, you'll see they have their own kind of people or someone they trust that's in the chute with the cattle.
There's one guy hired here to push every single steering.
So it's one guy hired.
One guy.
Everybody.
Yep.
And they get them right before they nod, but then after that gate rattles, all of the different things that can happen amaze me, right? That we take for granted for a run being good.
Right. But the guys who tried to hit and swat on the big stout pen last night, it's just not going to work.
Another thing. What is that? I know.
Well, it's kind of like instead of like staying up over him and sliding him out, it's one of those things. People say you have to slow down to be fast or whatever, but the guys that get the really clean flat falls, airplane them or whatever, they stay up over their feet. John W. Jones Jr., like, he was so small, he had to do it correctly. The guys that do that, instead of maybe falling on their backs and swiping at the nose or whatever, they do a lot better in the big stout pen. You can get away with some of that stuff when the steers are smaller.
I think they do a lot better long term. It's the same thing with the hui and the tie down, right? We've seen some situations where the tie if the calf made any effort to get up, he would have been in trouble in these past rounds, right? Toes, halves, just hoping that they lay there, right?
And I will also say, before the rodeo yesterday, seeing Jesse Brown putting in miles on a stationary bike was interesting, and I got to visit with him while he was doing that, and he's like, oh my God, I've never ridden a bike so much in my life. But for those of you who saw it in person or on the Cowboy Channel, he had a bad wreck at Pendleton, and in September, and crashed, got knocked out, tore his MCL in his knee. He's a stud athlete, and he was a big time college football player, and you can see he's one of those guys that gets up and trots out of the arena after he makes his run, but you can see what an athlete Jesse Brown is. But he's playing with pain here, but he's sucking it up and without complaint. But that guy is an athlete.
And I heard this morning he canceled on a couple talk shows because he's first in to get treated and worked on, and so that speaks to that.
Yeah.
Right?
The good news is he did say that it's not one of those cases where as soon as the finals is over he has to have surgery. He said it's a grade 2 tear of his MCL that they're trying to get away with intense therapy without surgery. So that's good news.
It's like the hamstring for Stetson, right? Knees and bulldoggers. I mean, if you look at what happens when they do that, I can't imagine having a weak knee, right? A weaker knee than the other.
Yeah.
And evenly slowing down those cattle, slowing it down, like
right.
you said, and getting over the top. It's
and on the Stetson deal, for those who were not on the arena floor, in round 2, after his bronc, when he came off, Stetson Wright is tougher than nails. He was bawling. Yeah. And that's how bad, we were talking about earlier, like he was going to try to gut it out and play with pain. It became, no longer a matter of gutting it out. It was not functionally possible anymore. So
the body overrules the mind, and it has to. It's safety, self-preservation.
So let's go ahead to the team roping because it was a matter of redemption. There were more than one event like that last night. Logan Medlin, who's the son of NFR team roper Jeff Medlin, who's a dear friend of mine. He had a couple rough first couple of rounds, and what was cool watching those guys last night, Coleman Proctor is a card. He's hilarious. He's a great character.
You walked by earlier. He's just great.
And when he's in there on his old veteran horse Heisman, he nods. The gate does not pop or whatever. It's just one of those things that happens. And his horse, this old salty dog Heisman, is jacking around in there. Coleman starts laughing in the box. This is Coleman Proctor. And then he takes a couple deep breaths and, is all business. But it was cool to see those guys. What were they? 3-7?
3-7.
3-7.
3-7, yeah.
It was fun to see after watching the look on Logan's face the first couple nights when things did not come together. And of course, Coleman took all the blame last night. When things went their way, he said, I did not do a good job as the quarterback of our team the first 2 nights. And so typical Cowboys, but it was fun. And for those of you who don't know the connection, so Blaine Cox, the calf roper, is about to marry Logan's sister Abby, and so more Cowboy connections are coming. But the Medlins are, they're the nicest, most. They're a ranching family from Tatum, New Mexico, and I, however old Logan is, I was at Lovington, New Mexico with Mike Macy, who's now married to Kyle Frost, and Logan Medlin. They were roping together, and there was a big, terrible wildfire going on in Tatum, New Mexico, and Logan was due, and Jeff needed to run his steer before he could race home to where his very, very pregnant wife was stuck in a wildfire. And I remember we went to the movies, Macy Medlin and I, we went to the movies, and I remember those guys, they ordered runts. And I got the giggles. I'm like, are you kidding me? They ordered runts for the movie. Anyway, those guys are awesome, and they're both wonderful rodeo families. But it was very nice to see, especially for Logan, because he's never going to have a fit in the arena, but it hurts when you don't.
Well, hopefully I'm not running things together, but I'm pretty sure Junior missed last night.
He did.
That's a big deal. But, it's not as big a deal. So first I'm like, oh, God. Then I thought, this is team roping. For real, anything can happen. Other guys' teams can miss, and even the playing field in the aggregate, the average, right?
Well, the hard part of the Junior miss, and you can just read his face the moment he cuts loose. He took an extra swing. He had a very tricky situation to navigate, and he took an extra swing, which is not Junior's calling card. And then when he misses, hindsight's 20/20. But on the bright side, this is going to be a wonderful, fun thriller of the next 7 rounds because, cut him loose, and then we get to see his head pop off of his horse's butt, right, when he rears back.
Same deal. But any of those other guys, team roping's one of those deals where you can have a disastrous round and a lot of misses, right? And especially, though, when there's those guys gunning because they don't have anything to lose, then the other guys have to.
And there are plenty of years where hi, Senna Jenny, where this deal's 1 on 9 steers, too. That does happen. Exactly. But, hey, ask Speed Williams and Rich Skelton. You can have a no time and come back and take it to him and have it all pan out. So let's go on to the bronc riding. Sage Newman he won the round. He was 89. He's the world number 1 now. Stetson's out. But yeah. So
I thought, the Bronx, it was a good bronc riding. Montana Cowboy. Sage is one of those that you better not go to sleep on. He goes to first in the world standings, which we all knew this was going to happen.
Now, what was it that Flint loves Sage Newman? They're both Montana guys, and he said something about he's got a football mustache, 9 on each side.
I heard something about that. I was trying to figure it out.
Anyway, but talk about coming from a small town. USA, Melstone, Montana. Sage graduated in a class of 6.
Cowboy. Yep. Probably long way to town, back to the ranch, right?
I thought a cool moment in the bronc riding was Stetson helping his brother Ryder in the chute, and
riding the bronc with Ryder.
He rode with him and screamed the whole time.
He was right on the back. You could see his hips. He was going, and I'm like, "Easy, buddy, easy."
But
you got a broke band down there somewhere.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, let's scoot along to our boy Riley Webb, 6'9" in the calf rope, and that the first couple nights, but that's Riley Webb right there, folks. And being 6 is not like, notice he did not say, it's so cool to be 6 for the first time. That kid's been 6 as much as...
I heard he said that it's about time I got 6 in here. I'm 6 all year long.
Well, I don't know. Nothing new to him. The thing about Riley Webb is he has reinvested his profits into his horse herd, and it's paying huge dividends. He's got a couple horses, Boots, and he just bought a bad cat from Lane Livingston. The horse's name is Rudy, and holy smokes.
Really?
So you put a kid like Riley Webb, who's fearless and super talented, on that caliber of horse, and I mean, Caleb Schmidt in pockets. We know, what that looks like. So Riley Webb and Rudy is a similar cocktail of badassery on both sides.
And while we're on the horse thing, Hanchey riding a different horse with a little bit different gait and head probably affected his run, obviously.
Think about that. He got off of his horse of the year.
I know.
Because you got to do whatever you got to do.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So, but those are all of the things that we take for granted that it's a big mix to try to figure all of this out.
Yeah.
But Riley, we said it yesterday. For
it's
me,
coming.
Well, I was hoping, right? Because it's either coming or, which just sounds stupid. It's either coming or it's not. But seeing that happen, now it's on. I say it's on. And there's so many guys I'm pulling for, right, in that group. Like,
yes.
It's cool. So
and it's fun. Today, on our Rodeo Deep Dive show that's live on the Cowboy Channel 1:30 to 2 every day, I call this one Records Were Made to Be Broken. And we have Dalton Massey and Riley Webb and the old salt Donnie Gay on there to talk about, these obliterated money records that all cowboys want broken every year. So that's fun and there will be a good mood on that stage after Dalton winning the first round and Riley winning last night. It's pretty cool. Anyway, the barrel race.
Look what we got.
Oh my gosh. Billy Bauer in a wagon full of little ones. Hello.
Hi,
you guys. Oh my gosh.
I need that wagon when you're done.
Lisa Lockhart wins the round on her gray horse Levy last night, top of the ground. 17-time NFR qualifier, one of only $3 million barrel racing cowgirls in the history, which I believe Brittany Posey-Tanazi, who is our front runner here, and Sherry Servey are the exclusive trio in that club. Again, there were a lot of barrels hit last night, but like 5 girls hit barrels, but a lot of 13s. Another heartbreaker for me, talking about, it wasn't heartbreaking that Shane Hanchey switched horses and then, had a rough night, but Tacey Matthews, her horse of the year, she qualifies for her first NFR. She has a dream season and has to leave her star of her herd, Pop Rocks, at home from a hock injury at a jackpot in October. Pop Rocks will be back. That's the good news. Tacey started out here on her stud, Bud the Stud, and then last night, to just change things up, pulls out Bud's daughter, a little Palomino mare. I think she's only 5 years old. Her name is Stoli. And it was, this is some hot spotlights for a 5-year-old. And it showed a little bit. She was a little lost on the first barrel, and I think they hit the second one. But Tacey Matthews is showing, what kind of a cowgirl she is and the character to run down the alley at the NFR on a 5-year-old, the daughter of the horse you rode the night before. That takes some big ones. And so kudos to her. She's a cowgirl. So should we talk about the bull riding?
Well, before we leave, Lisa Lockhart is one of my favorite humans in the world. She's genuine, and I love to see her win. The other thing, hats off to Randy Spraggins and the crew there on the ground, because these girls are confident in the ground. So I reached out to Randy. He's like, his deal was, we got the racetrack right for sure right now. So, and when these girls are saying, taking pictures with him and saying good ground instead of saying, so you're seeing them from the top to the bottom hit it hard, and they're not concerned about that, and that's fantastic. That makes for the best.
And cooler, we all appreciate getting the chance to see somebody place when they're, 15th out. That's fun as fans to see 13s at the bottom of the ground, but way more importantly, the thank you is for not about the winning and the losing as much as these horses are their living. They are family to these girls, and their safety and the girls' safety for that matter. You start having, horses go down with girls on their backs. That's awful.
It is awful.
So kudos to the ground crew, big time. So Creek Walker, 89.5, won the bull riding. I thought, we keep talking about re-rides. Trey Kimsey, interesting. I watched the rodeo with the Bulldogger, but we both expected Sage Kimsey to get a reride. That did not happen, and clearly Sage also expected it. He was like waiting, and did not get that flag thrown. So I'm not sure. Maybe nobody saw it the way. Anyway,
well, let's just talk about the rule because they're judges. Okay, so the way I understand the rule is, if an animal gets fouled, hits something. When we say gets fouled, if it changes the position of the cowboy on his back, not just the position of the animal, right? So if it affects his right, and I think that might be where the gray area is here. I heard some people saying, well, the animal's position for Sage was changed, and it was. It switched, it moved him, right? It changed his feet, how he was moving. But if it doesn't, I think, if it doesn't move the rider, right, if it doesn't affect him, and I also don't know, but I'm pretty sure, I think had Sage intentionally let that happen, maybe. Does that make sense? Like, or notify or something. So I think it's very gray. I think he should have got a reride. I honestly do. But I think that's probably where this is coming in because Trey, same thing. It changed the direction, but it was obvious that it knocked him off of the center bubble. And I don't know that it was that obvious that it knocked Sage off. Now, it obviously was because when he got off, he immediately reacted, right? So, again, it's personal.
It all happens in the heat of the moment, and we all get, the privilege of slow motion instant replay that the judges don't have in real time. In fairness to them, they're doing their expert opinion. They're doing the best they can.
There's a point of view.
There's a point of view.
But Trey, little brother Trey, he did capitalize and made some good money on taking a reride. Our pirate Hayes Waite, man, 7.95 seconds. Those are tough because that's like
those are tough.
That's I mean, how fast can someone press their stopwatch? That's
I know
0.5 1.
But you got to have a line.
I know.
And you got to live with it.
It's tough,
and it will touch everybody, every cowboy at some point in their career. This is just a terrible time for it to touch him.
Right. So, Kai Hamilton, Stetson Wright's best friend and traveling partner, he's 3 for 3. That's the headline for me on the bull riding.
Well, and overall, interesting. One of my sources sent me for the first time ever last night. This is cool. For the first time ever last night, every NFR contestant crossed over the $100,000 mark for the season. Everyone in there.
That's very cool.
That's
progress.
That's progress. Yep. Congratulations. And in hindsight, looking at this, here's my deal. I'm going to step out and say Rocker's going to win this. I think Rocker's going to. I'm to the point.
3 rounds in.
Yep. So mark it down, Greg.
Write it down.
Mark it down. I'm going to step out and say that. And here's why. Because all my people back in the backstage say that his demeanor and his deal is so much different than in the past. And you've even mentioned that. He's still himself, but he's not overcompensating. And I'm making up words, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'll say that. So to the haters, he's still only 19, but you know what? He learned a lot from mistakes. I think we'd all agree there might have been a few things he might have done differently looking back, and he's not made those. All of us, if we learn from our mistakes,
amen,
then we continue to progress and mature.
Right.
Is there anything else? Because before we get out of here, I would like to say something that has nothing to do with the NFR.
Well, no, we'll just hit go ahead, say it, and we'll hit feedback,
okay,
and we'll get out.
So I had a change of course this morning. Last night, right before the rodeo, Oak gets word. This is big rodeo world, rodeo family stuff. But a kid, Jackson Williams from a 24-year-old steer wrestler who grew up in Arkansas, who is an OSU graduate. he died yesterday in a duck hunting accident. I don't know what to call it. It was at Sooner Lake, which is near Ponca City and Stillwater. He shoots a duck and is waiting out there to get it, to retrieve it, and hits a drop off, where it drops off and becomes suddenly deep, and his waders filled with water, and he drowned.
Oh my
And
word.
this is a loss. These sorts of losses to our rodeo family, it's like the Golden Circle of Champions, kids fighting pediatric cancer. That's what this kid was on, the Oatberry Junior Steer Wrestling World Championship Tour, where we have our welcome reception today, and that starts tomorrow, where we'll crown our world champion. But this is a kid who, Oat first met him at Tom Carney's Arena in Louisiana, which is where Tyler Wagasback spent a lot of his youth. And this Jackson Williams, tall, lanky kid, but Oat said just a super kid, very humble, wanted to learn, nice to everybody, and what he didn't have in size, he made up. Had a huge heart and try, and just to think about, sort of like the UNLV shooting and delays this rodeo by a day, but this kid, 24 years old, with the world at his feet, loves to wrestle steers and play the guitar, and he left this world yesterday. And so the perspective of that, we're here to battle for gold buckles, but there's a family and countless cowboy friends who are not consolable this morning, and that's a big loss for our rodeo family.
Well,
So.
God needed him worse than the world did, and we should all put that family in our prayers.
Yes.
And tragedy. Don't take anything for granted. One quick shout out before I kick it over to Greg. Emma Cameron won Miss Rodeo America from New Mexico. The pageant, it's the crowning yesterday. We'll see Emma at the National Western in Denver, and we'll meet her there with our crew. And I didn't really hear any major gossip about that. I did hear it was kind of that some of the sources of mine said that Miss Rodeo Idaho was really, really good and didn't show up in the placings. And so, but all that stuff has its ins and outs.
On Miss Rodeo America, fashion fail, Kendra, who's worn the same jeans since Monday.
You don't admit that. Why do you admit that?
Who cares? I'm comfortable. So on the Miss Rodeo America pageant, people think, oh, rodeo queens, whatever. I'll say this. For many years, I judged the photographic portion of the pageant, which is kind of a chuckle of an irony for the girl who showed up with wet hair again. But and then Oat and I judged the Shaps portion of the pageant a couple years ago, which was really fun. But what I'll say about this, and you have a sister-in-law who's a Miss Rodeo America, Lisa.
Correct.
And I'm soon to have a daughter-in-law, Jordan Tierney, who's a Miss Rodeo America. And what I'll say about all these young women, if you want to just say, oh, queens, whatever, this is a smart,
Amen.
talented bunch of exceptional young women, and they're not just pretty. They go on. Catherine Merck's an attorney. I mean, they do things after they represent our. They're ambassadors for the sport of rodeo, but they're not just pretty faces. They're smart, awesome young women.
And queening, I've learned, is a grind. Right now that I have a queen in my family, queening, they call it. I didn't even know it was a term. But anyway, hats off to the winner and all of those that competed. And don't take for granted what rodeo queens do, is your note for our industry. Greg, give us a little, do we get any feedback from our no spinners that we don't want to leave them out, even though we're running way behind here?
Yeah, we did get some feedback over the past couple days. Someone from the 805 was a little bit curious about what how the Cowboy Channel feed is going, and asked if I had gotten any updates from the Cowboy Channel. I have not gotten any updates, but I did notice that some of the footage that we get for packages and stuff that they want replayed does have a little bit of pixelization in it. So I'm going to go ahead and reach out to my sources over there and see if there's anything on their end. But it is a complicated system. Streaming video is complicated, and there's many jumps in between that can affect the quality of the stream. But I'll ask them and see what they can.
Yeah, see if you can dig into it. The problem is for that is that you can almost blame, like you said, so many things that nobody owns when they screw up.
I mean, we've been there. We've had situations where our stream going to the Cowboy channel looks great, but they're getting it and it's all pixelated or non-existent. And it turns out that it could be the city infrastructure. It could be the CDN network, which is the content delivery guys who actually stream it out. They may be having issues. So it's a big world, and I'll see if they can kind of give me a little information on that. So we love your feedback, so please keep it coming. You can text us at 817-668-2395 or email us at nospinfeedback@gmail.com.
Well, we're late, so let's wrap this up. Thank you all for coming. Have a good, fun time. We're starting kind of the week, the homestretch week, and we'll get into some fun things like cool restaurants that you can visit here that are off the strip. We'll also talk about all the amazing things that the city of Las Vegas is doing in the next 10 years. So more to come for tomorrow's episode. My cohort in pink, Kendra Santos and Greg Teagarden, our producer. I'm Tommy Joe Lucia. Thank you for downloading, subscribing, and listening to No Spin Rodeo. Thank you to South Point. We'll see you tomorrow.